There's a number in your head you have never once looked at. It's how good a thing has to be before you'll bother doing it. You didn't choose it, and you can't feel it directly. But it decides what happens to every free evening you have. And over the last few years, quietly it went up. Books didn't get worse and your friends didn't get duller. The floor moved. Everything that used to clear it now sits just underneath. This isn't about the phone stealing your rest. That's a real problem, and it's a different one. This is about what it did to the scale. Your brain doesn't measure enjoyment in absolute units. It measures everything against what it has recently been getting. Feed it 4 hours a day of the most stimulating thing ever built. And the average it compares against climbs to meet it. Then you open a novel you were genuinely excited about. 40 seconds in, your hand is already reaching for the phone. Not because the novel failed. Because it's being scored against a bar it was never built to clear. Nothing about you is broken here. A healthy system is doing exactly what it was designed to do. Here's the mechanism, and it's simpler than people make it sound. Dopamine isn't the chemical that makes things feel good. It's closer to the one that makes things feel worth doing. It fires on the gap between what you expected and what you got. Better than expected is a spike, and the spike pulls you forward. Exactly as expected is nothing at all. So the whole system runs on comparison with a running average. Scientists call that average a baseline, and it updates constantly. If berries are suddenly everywhere, berries stop being exciting. That's a feature, and it kept your ancestors alive. Your grandmother's most stimulating evening had a hard upper limit. Yours fits in your pocket and never runs out. So the average keeps climbing because nothing tells it to stop. And every ordinary pleasure you own gets rescored underneath it. The walk, the meal, the conversation that goes nowhere in particular. None of them changed. The line they're measured against did. So why the phone and not television? It isn't that the content is better. Most of what you scrolled past yesterday was actively bad. The difference is that you can't predict it. A novel delivers what a novel delivers, page after page. A feed delivers nothing, 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 and then something. And your brain treats unpredictable rewards very differently from reliable ones. An animal on a lever that pays every time presses it calmly. An animal on a lever that pays at random will not stop. Randomness is the strongest schedule there is, and every feed runs it. So the thing raising your baseline isn't quality. It's uncertainty delivered a few hundred times an hour. You can spend 90 minutes in that app and enjoy almost none of it. You'd never do that with something you actually like. 90 minutes of a film you love leaves you full. 90 minutes of scrolling leaves you looking for your phone. Wanting and liking are two separate systems in there. And the feed is enormous on one and nearly silent on the other. Here's a test, and you can run it right now. Name 3 things you saw on your phone yesterday. Not categories but actual things with detail attached. Most people can't get past one, and that one was annoying. Now name 3 things from a holiday 9 years ago. They arrive immediately in color with the weather still attached. Enjoyment leaves a residue and the feed leaves none. Hours went in and nothing came out the other side. And the cost isn't the time so much as the scoring. Those hours still counted toward the average. They raised the bar without putting anything on the shelf. There's a second mechanism stacked on top of the first. Every strong pleasure triggers a matching counter-response behind it. Your body wants to stay level, so it pushes back against the spike. Repeat it often enough and that pushback gets stronger and faster. Meanwhile, the original spike gets smaller. More is needed to get there, and the drop afterwards is deeper. You've felt the drop even if you never named it. It's the specific flatness of putting the phone down. Not sadness and not tiredness exactly. A gray neutral where the evening was supposed to be. That flatness isn't the real you underneath the distraction. It's the counter-response with nothing left on top of it. And it fades, which is the part nobody tells you. But it fades over hours and days, not over minutes. Judge your appetite for ordinary life in that window, and you'll get a false answer. Here's what it costs, and it's more than a few wasted evenings. It isn't only that the phone takes time from what you love. It's that it quietly reclassifies those things as things you don't. You still say you like reading. You just haven't finished a book since the spring. But the effort of it now reads as an obstacle rather than the point. One by one, the slow things move to a folder marked someday. And nothing ever comes back out of that folder. Then the explanation arrives, and this is where it turns unkind. You don't blame the scale because you can't see the scale. You blame yourself. You decide you've got lazy or that your capacity for joy wore out early. And that story does more damage than the scrolling ever did. Because a person who believes they're broken doesn't run the experiment. They skip the walk, knowing already that it'll feel like nothing. So they go back to the one thing that still clears the floor, which raises the floor again, which makes the next attempt feel flatter than the last. And round it goes for years, feeling exactly like a personality. When it's a setting. So here's the reframe, and it's smaller than you'd want it to be. A baseline isn't damage. It's a measurement, and measurements move in both directions. Whatever climbed to meet 4 hours of stimulation will climb back down. It has no preference, and it only averages what you give it. So you aren't repairing anything, only changing the input and waiting for the average to follow. And it doesn't have to go all the way back. Only low enough that an ordinary book clears it again. That's a shorter distance than it feels like from here. 3 things, and the first sounds like the opposite of advice. First, let it be boring on purpose. When you take the stimulation away, what arrives isn't peace. It's a flat, itchy nothing, and most people read that as failure. It isn't failure, but the sound of the floor coming down. If you quit every time it shows up, you never get past the first week. Second, stop stacking the fast thing on top of the slow one. Most people don't choose the phone over the book. They bring the phone to the book, and the book loses. So put the phone in another room, not face down on the table. The distance has to be physical, because willpower in the moment isn't real. Third, choose the things that pay you at the end. A feed pays every few seconds and leaves nothing behind. A long walk pays once at the end and it lasts for hours. So does a finished chapter, a proper meal, an unhurried conversation. These feel worse per minute and better per day. That trade is the whole skill, and the feed trained it out of you. None of these 3 are about willpower. Which is worth saying because you've tried willpower and lost. You're changing what your brain averages, then getting out of the way. You haven't lost your ability to enjoy things. That's the sentence I'd want you to take out of here. You have a healthy reward system that was handed something enormous. It adjusted, which is the correct response to what it was given. Everything you used to love is exactly where you left it. It's all still sitting a little way under the line. And the line comes down on its own once you stop feeding it. Not tonight, and probably not this week. But sooner than someone who thinks they're broken would bother to find out. So don't try to fix yourself this evening. Just be a bit bored, and let the floor drop an inch. Then find out whether the book was ever really the problem. If that landed a bit close, you're in good company. Subscribe, stay a while. I'll see you in the next one.